Assalamualaikum and very good evening to all audience who are able to attend our program this evening called Speaking of Silence and Hearing Hope. I hope every single one of you is doing well. Yeah, before we go any further, allow me to introduce myself. So, a short brief about me. My name is Amirul Shafiq bin Abdul Rahman and I am from College Matrikulasi Negeri Sembilan. I am also a Science Hayat student, System 2 semester. Yes, as you can see here, of course, I am not alone. I am here with my lovely friend.
Yes, thank you, Amiro. Okay, so I will be his fellow partner for this evening session. So my name is Muhammad Nabil bin Mazlan. I also from College Matrikulasi Negeri Sembilan. I also attend a Science Hayat System 2 semester. So we too will be a little moderator for our session this evening to make sure our program will running smoothly for you all. So I will take part in Q&A session before the end of our program tonight. Okay, so Amirul, I have a little bit question for you.
Yes, Nabil.
So did you have any friends or deaf peoples that may be related to your life?
Well, actually, yes. I also counted them. Last month, yeah, this is a short story about me. So last month, my friends and I went to a shopping mall. Then we want to go home. I asked my mom to order a Grab for us so we can safely arrive. Then the car arrived. We entered the car. Then my mom told me that the driver is deaf. So I be like, oh my god, how how will I able to communicate with him? Because I have no knowledge about sign language or all that stuff. But yes, of course, we safely arrived. So I think it is essential and important for us to learn and know about the deaf culture and a little bit of sign language so we able to communicate with them. And they are also part of our community, so we should treat them well.
Oh, that was a nice sharing from you, Amirul.
Thank you. So, Nabil, I have a question for you actually.
Yes.
Uh, do you have any fundamental or basic knowledge about the deaf culture or any sign language?
Okay, to be honest, Amirul, I really didn't know much about this deaf culture. What I mean is, I am very unfamiliar with this issue due to my lifestyle.
Oh, I see. So that is why we are all here. We are here to gain knowledge and know more about the deaf culture and a little bit of sign language. So, without wasting time, without much further ado, I invite Madam Yogas, a part-time teacher from Asian Association, to explain and brief us more. Madam Yogas.
Hello, everyone. A very good evening to all of you. Thank you to College Matriculation for giving me this opportunity to share as well as create awareness about the deaf community and the Malaysian Sign Language. Okay, I'm Yogesh and I'm a late deafened adult, which means that I became deaf later. I've lost a bit of my hearing, a partial hearing loss um, at the age of 12. And I've been teaching deaf students at Lim Kok Wing for 15 years. So before I start my talk, I would like to tell you all about this precious person who has done a lot for the deaf community. Okay, this person is actually known as the father of the deaf in Malaysia, and he is the one and only father of the deaf in Malaysia. We don't have father number two or father number three. There is no replacement. And his name is Mr. Tan Yap. Mr. Tan Yap has sacrificed a lot, and he felt that his true calling was to help the deaf. He was actually the state pharmacist of a government hospital in Johor Bahru, And one day, a deaf person came to collect medicines, and he tried to communicate with the deaf person, and he felt that maybe this medicine is the wrong one for the deaf person. So he was very worried. The deaf person could not sign well, he was just showing some gestures. And he was thinking, like, how do deaf people meet the doctors and communicate? What if the medicines are wrong? So that was one of his concerns. The second one was when he went for movies with his family members and he saw the deaf selling black market tickets, movie tickets. The hearing people is people who can hear, have given these tickets to the deaf and tell them sell and we will pay you commission. So the deaf people, okay, no problem. I want money. I'm jobless. So they sell, and suddenly the police comes and catches them, and they don't know what was the problem. What have I done? I'm just selling movie tickets. They didn't know that it was wrong. So Mr. Tanyab realized that the community seriously needs help. So he took a lot of leaves and sacrificed his pay. He went to US, and one of the places he went to is to Gallaudet University. Gallaudet University is one of the only universities in the world for the deaf. Now we also have some one in Philippines, but in the past it was the only university for the deaf. So he went there and a few other places in the US to learn sign language. And then he came to Malaysia and introduced sign language to the deaf community. He trained the teachers, government teachers, and he also set up a school in Johor for the deaf. And he was also the one who set up Pusat Majudiri Y in YMCA to help the deafs, to equip them with skills so that they can get jobs. And he passed away at the age of 98 a few years ago. Such a loss to our community, the deaf community. Now I'm going to talk about deaf culture. What exactly is deaf culture? Okay, it's about deaf people using sign language as a part of their communication. Another thing is they are very proud of their identity. They are deaf and they are not embarrassed about it. Number three is they even have songs in sign language. They even have performances in sign language. And most of them have almost a similar childhood experiences. They went to similar deaf schools, and most of them, their parents don't know sign language. They are not close to their family members because of they're unable to communicate. No, the family members do not know sign language, so they share a similar kind of childhood experiences. And now I would like to share with you all a deaf culture video. It's fun to watch. Hi everyone, we are back again. I hope you all enjoyed the video just now, and I hope it made you realize that how different your lives as hearing people are from the deaf. I wouldn't say it's 100% different, but there is differences. Just now we saw that deaf people have difficulty saying goodbye. They prefer to spend hours talking to their community. That's because most of the family members can't sign. And when they work with hearing people like you all. Okay, people who can hear, we call them hearing people. So they work with you all, and none of you know how to sign. So they feel very lonely. But when they get together with their community, that they're so excited. They have lots of things to talk about. So that's why saying goodbye very soon is difficult. And also, even though deaf people are sitting far away from each other, they can still sign. So there's no barrier for them. Even if there is a glass in between, also they can still sign and communicate. So that is the wonders of sign language. Okay, now I'm going to talk. Okay, there's one more thing I need to share with you all is that if you visit a deaf couple's house, you will notice that their doorbell it consists of light, not sound. So when you ring the doorbell, the light will flicker and they know there's someone outside. That is the interesting thing. Another thing is you saw just now how the girl was reacting to the food that is horrible. Deaf people have expressions, facial expressions, and body language, which hearing people like y'all could be poker faced. So when you learn sign language, you need to improve your facial expressions and body language because as hearing people, we know that you are annoyed or you are angry through the tone of your voice. But for deaf, it's through their facial expression. So if you learn sign language, you're going to enjoy it. Okay, another thing, the common misconception is people say, why is it when all these people who are hearing impaired call themselves deaf? Deaf means totally deaf, cannot hear, but I see them listening to music. I see that guy talking, reading lips and responding. So I would like to explain what is that. If we say deaf, if it's deaf in capital D, it means culture. It means the group of people who with, come together with a similar culture, which is deaf culture. So they share similar history, beliefs, values, lifestyle. So that's why we have capital D, E, A, F. But if it is small d, that means they could be profoundly deaf. So, what kind of deafness do we have? We have people who are deaf, profoundly deaf. We have people who are hard of hearing. They have some form of hearing, and some of them can speak quite well. And we have late deafened adults. One of them is me. Okay, I lost my hearing at the age of 12 because of high fever. So, losing your hearing can happen any age, but many of them are born deaf. So, for those who are born deaf, sign language is their mother tongue. For late deafened adults, they grew up with ability to speak and hear, but suddenly they lost their hearing. Hard of hearing, they may be able to speak and hear and sign. But for most deaf people, sign language is their mother tongue. Okay, there's another thing I need to say is that deaf people do not like to hear the word to be called hearing impaired. Why? When you see someone blind, you don't say, hey, he is sight impaired. We don't use that word. We use the word blind or partially blind. Similarly, when you see someone who is mentally challenged, you don't say, hey, he's mentally impaired. We use the word mentally challenged. So deaf people do not like the word impaired. Imagine if someone calls you impaired. I'm impaired. I'm impaired. I need to be fixed. So when you say impaired, that means the person or something needs to be fixed. Deaf people are proud of their identity as a deaf person. They don't see themselves as someone who needs to be fixed. So hearing impaired is actually like a medical term. Doctors and those in the medical field will use it. But when you meet deaf people, don't ask them, are you hearing impaired? It doesn't sound nice. They don't like it. Okay, so how do we call deaf people when you see them on the streets or when you're working with them? You don't take objects and throw at them. So you can just tap their shoulders. Or you can just tap the table if they are sitting on the same table. Or you can just switch on and off the light. I do that for my students. If my students are making a lot of noise and nobody's paying attention, their noise means they're signing away. It's not verbally, then I will switch on and off the light to get their attention. And okay, I would like to also share with you all about BIM. BIM is Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. So many people ask me questions like, is sign language a standard language? No, each country has its own sign language. Like India has its own sign language, US has its own sign language, and in Malaysia we are proud to say we have our own sign language. A language created by the deaf for the deaf. And it's still in progress. We are still coming up with new words. And it's a visual language. Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia is a visual language. It consists of sign language, body language, facial expression. And you need to learn the language. You can't say, I learned American Sign Language, so I think I can communicate well with the Malaysian deaf. No, you need to learn Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. And there are a few places that offer courses, sign language courses. And one of it was which Mr. Tan Yap started was Pusat Maju Diri YMCA, and we offer sign language classes also in other places as well. Okay, so that is what BRM is about, Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. Now, what happens if deaf people from many countries come and chat with each other? How do they understand each other? They still manage to understand each other. They use gestures and sometimes finger spelling. They still manage to communicate. Sign language interpreters, they have a standardized language. So when interpreters from different countries come together, they have a language, sign language that they understand. It's called International Sign Language. Okay, now I would like to share with you all about the dilemma that deaf community in Malaysia faces. And that is why we need a lot of people to learn sign language and support us. One of the dilemmas, major dilemma, is parents. Many parents, they do not know how to sign. They just have deaf kids and that's it. They leave it to the teacher. So what happens is, as a hearing child yourself, when you are young, your parents communicate with you. They teach you how to speak. So at a very young age, you have a proper language development. But deaf people, they don't. So they just stare at the parents, and the parents just stare at them and scold them. Don't do this, don't do that. And they don't understand why my parents always scold me. Do they hate me? So that's how they grew up. So parents sort of like expect the teachers to communicate for them. That's number one dilemma. I feel that parents should be committed to learn sign language if you have a deaf child. Some parents tell me that, hey, I've done my PhD, but they don't know how to sign and communicate with their child. I find that is very sad. Communicating with your kids is more important than doing your PhD. I don't need to criticize. Okay, number two is that some teachers in our schools for the deaf, they can't sign very well or they don't know sign language. So that affects the child's education. So in this case, we need to have a proper training system for teachers who teach in deaf schools so that they can sign very well. Some teachers sign very, very well. However, some still struggle, and some just write on the board the words and expect the students to read. And some teachers just talk, they just speak, and the students can't hear. So, in that way, deaf students and the deaf community struggle when it comes to education in Malaysia, which is very, very sad. So most of them fail their SPM, they can't join the college, they do blue collar jobs. So I really hope that this can be overcome. Another thing is we have a dire need for interpreters, sign language interpreters, and I'm very grateful to our government for having sign language interpreters during news. Um, that was such a great thing. Now deaf people can see news and keep themselves updated. They know what is going on. So I'm very grateful to our government for doing that. Our government also has training programs for teachers who teach in the deaf school. Besides that, the welfare department also helps deaf people financially, especially those who want to buy hearing aids. So I'm very grateful for that. For those who are earning very little money, government gives them allowances. In Sarawak, they are trying to make sign language as a part of a subject in school, and that is very if school children, the hearing children and the deaf children can be in the same class, and the hearing children know how to sign. That would be really, really good. It teaches the hearing children to be patient, to accept those who are different from them, to be understanding, to empathize. And it helps the deaf child to improve their education. If they don't understand what the teacher is saying, they can ask the hearing friend. They can work together when it comes to projects. But right now, that is not happening. So we can only overcome this gap between the hearing students and the deaf students by making sure that schools teach sign language as a subject, as an extra subject. Also, after SPM, deaf students still struggle when they want to go to college. Lim Kok Wing University for many, many years, more than 15 years, was the only university in Malaysia that provided facilities for the deaf and really, really cared for the deaf. And we had more than 200 deaf people who graduated and they are doing white collar jobs. But right now, there's no university for the deaf. No universities want to provide facilities. So it's back to square one. After SPM, and maybe they go to Polytechnic, but some don't get places in Polytechnic. They fail their SPM, they work with the factories and things like that. So I'm really hoping that some kind-hearted person will allow deaf people to study in the university or college, pursue higher education by providing facilities. Facilities like interpreters, tutors, language teachers, especially English language teachers. So these three will be very helpful for the deaf. And I hope that all of you would take the opportunity to learn sign language to help the community to improve. Many of them have got their PhD, but still some are still much backward. Those who have got their PhD are those who worked very hard without any interpreters beside them, and they had to spend nights going through the notes and trying to understand what the teacher was teaching them verbally. So it's a very tough tough life for the deaf community. And when it comes to jobs, they still struggle, and some of them use speech to text translators. I'm very grateful to Google for having such app that translates speech to text. Even Google Meet has that facility. Unfortunately, it is not perfect. So sometimes the speech is not very accurate and we misunderstand what the other person is saying. So there are a lot of challenges that the deaf people are still facing, even though we say technology is very much advanced today. So I would like to encourage everyone to learn sign language. It's very interesting. Number one, you are going to learn a visual language. Sign language is the only visual language in the world. Number two, you will learn for how to um, do facial expressions. Number three, you learn how to do body language, something different. Why don't you all take it a challenge and learn? Okay, so now there is question and Q&A session. If you have any questions you would like to ask me, please let me know.
Okay, so for the
Yeah, yeah.
audience, do you have any question? Chat. Please leave your comment in the chat box. Okay, so for the first question, where can I learn the sign language?
Yeah, Miss Farah, there are a few places that teach sign language. One of it is YMCA KL.
Okay, thank you, Madam and Farah. So we go to the next question from Atira Zahida. How long did you take to learn sign language?
Yes, my sign language is not my mother tongue. So I learned it when I was 23 years old, and I took up about 4 to 5 levels, and it was around just 4 to 5 months to learn. Each level lasts about um, 5 to 6 weeks. So I took around 5 to 6 months to learn sign language. But some people just within 2, 3 levels and they're already very good. So it depends on the individual.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
Yes, I think
Next question. Nur Aimi Shadia. Is there any online classes available to learn sign language?
yeah, I know because of this COVID, everybody prefers to learn online. Yes, YMCA conducts classes online.
Okay. Next. Nurin Atira binti Muhammad Fazli. What makes American Sign Language and Malaysian Sign Language different?
Yes, actually, the sign language is created by the deaf community themselves. So in America, each state, the deaf community have their own sign language, so they combine and make it into American Sign Language. The same thing in Malaysia. The deaf in Johor, the deaf in Terengganu, the deaf in Penang, they have different sign languages. So we sort of combined them and created BIM, Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. So that's how it's different.
Okay, so from Muhammad Iqbal bin Muhammad Radimo. Okay, if we learn international sign language, is it better than or equal to our sign language if we use it here?
Okay, international sign language, usually only interpreters use it, sign language interpreters, but not us, the deaf community, no. So I know you're talking about having something standard that everybody all over the world can communicate, or the deaf all over the world, but it doesn't work like that. Like in Malaysia, we speak in Bahasa Melayu. London, they speak in English. Japanese, they speak in Japanese language. So how when we get together, it's the same situation.
So, do you guys have any question or inquiry? Leave your question down below.
That is one misconception that people think. Do you teach Bahasa using sign language? Do you teach English using sign language? No, Bahasa is is a language of its own. Sign language is a language of its own. If you ask me, do you teach Bahasa using sign language? It's like asking me, do you use Chinese language to teach Tamil language? No, both are separate languages. Huh?
So, it seems like we don't have any question.
Itu.
So, we open for maybe last question. All right, from Shuhada Rosli. This is our last question for today program. How to easily memorize the sign language and what are the ways you use to remember?
Yeah, sign language is a visual language, and it's usually there is a connection with what you are signing. For example, if I say good morning, I will sign like this. This means the sun is rising. Good afternoon, the sun is right above you. Good evening, the sun is setting. Good night, the sun has set. So there is a connection, and it's easier to remember. Another way is when you mix with the deaf community, you will improve more.
Oh, it seems like we have. Okay. Another question from Nurin Atirah binti Muhammad Fazlin. How much it costs to join YMCA language class?
Actually, I don't know. You have to ask YMCA. I'm not working out in YMCA. You need to ask them, but it should be affordable.
I think that is all. Okay,
Okay, so Madam Yogesh, thank you for your sharing for tonight. Okay, as we bring our seminar to a close, we once again to thanks Madam Yogesh.
Oh,
Oh, Madam, actually,
we have
for
another
this, we have
question.
another
Then.
question from Nisha. It's
Uh,
interesting. Huh? Do you mind showing us some easy phrases like "How are you" in sign language?
okay, that's interesting. Actually, sign language is not like signing exact sentences like "How are you?" Okay, if you sign up, "How you?" "I'm good." "Are you good?" And things like that. Or you can say, "How's my been?" So we just shorten it. We do not really follow every single word in a sentence. But in Singapore, they use signing exact English. So they sign every single word in the sentence. But Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia, no, you don't. Like, for instance, this is the sign for nasi lemak. This is the sign for satay. And this is the sign for milk. Come join sign language classes and learn signs. It's interesting.
Okay, so did you all have other question before we end our session for tonight?
All right, interesting. Uh, from Amirul Shafiq. May I know how to spell my name, Amirul?
We will finger spell your name. Huh? This is A. This is M. Okay, M has got three lines. I, R, U, L. That's your name, Amirul. But all deaf people have a sign name. So instead of spelling "Hi, Amirul," they will have a sign name for you. My sign name is Y as Yogesh. So maybe Amirul, because it's handsome, we would say Amirul. This is the sign for handsome. So we give sign names to that.
Yeah, Amirul. So that is the answer. I hope you're satisfied with your answer, Amirul. We open for any question if there is any.
Okay, so end of Q&A session. So we will come for a conclusion. Okay, so for a conclusion, we would thank Madam Yogesh as we bring our seminar to close. We once again to thanks Madam Yogesh for allowing yourself to spend a time for the audience to be here this evening, and hope that this program has given us a much clearer understanding of speaking of silence and hearing hope.
Yes, actually, we learn more. We know more now about sign language, right? Like do and don'ts. One of them is we should not tell the people like their impact. We must treat them equally, just like us. We in the same community and society, so we should treat them well.
In addition, also we had know that actually BIM uh,
Isyarat
bahasa
Melayu.
isyarat Melayu is an official language in Malaysia.
Right. So,
Okay, so Madam, we would welcome Madam Yogas to opportunity to return with maybe another interesting sharing and knowledge about deaf culture and sign language. So we hope that we will given a chance to see you in the future.
yes, and also I am glad to be one of the uh, able to take part in this seminar because it is a very useful information for us to gain. Yes, because yes, of course we live in Malaysia and we will meet with other people, so it is important for us to know about sign language. Yeah,
Yes.
so I think that is what we can conclude for our evening seminar. So for the audience, don't forget to fill the attendance in the link given. I think that is all. Wait, what is this? Nurin Atira. Just want to say that this seminar is so interesting. Thanks, Madam, your guest.
You.
Welcome, Nurin Atira. Okay,
Yes.
so I get that. That's it. That is all. So thank you for spending your time for our program called Speaking of Silence and Hearing Hope. I hope you gain knowledge, and yeah, see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Bye.
Bye, Madam.